Welcome to TechLondon, a show featuring interviews with London's top creative entrepreneurs, startups, investors, design agencies, internet marketers, and freelancers that make up the TechLondon online community, which mostly lives on the Slack instant messaging platform. We rotate through both hosts and guests for these interviews, so you have the chance to hear from multiple perspectives on London's tech scene.
Hey folks, we are doing a little wrap-up episode for 2021 here for the TechLondon podcast. So we just want to say where we've been and what happened this year, and then where we're going in 2022. And we're just trying to work out how to organize this podcast, and what the main thing was what are the topics? And there are so many very predictable topics that we could talk about in the startup community. What we didn't want to do was start yet another podcast about NFTs and crypto. And also, I don't think we need the airwaves does not need another Founders Stories podcast. So we're trying to carve out a theme that goes through everything. And where we ended up with, so I'm a trustee of Urban MBA, which is a program that helps young people, and predominantly in Hackney at the moment, build a freelance career, build a product, launch some kind of business. It's a 12-week program, and a constant theme in that is 5G and smart cities, because the people who go through that program are, learning for the future, not learning right now. And it just seemed, as me and Kofi and the other people around that project were talking, that more and more stuff connected to 5G. Most people I speak to aren't quite sure why they've got 5G on their phone, and they certainly don't know how it's going to impact their business, how it's going to impact their life, what they'll be able to do with it, and all those possibilities. Now, I know there's a small group of people who probably work for BT and Vodafone who know exactly what's going to happen there, but we want to find those stories because there's a business impact and a society impact from how 5G will happen. And also smart cities, that became more of a conversation in the pandemic, as the way we use cities changed very, very fast. A lot of people, in my little co-working world, the phrase, the COVID pandemic accelerated the future of work by 10 years. It happens like every other conversation, event, and podcast. So, a lot of you folks are familiar with Tech City and the Old Street roundabout, and in that area there's about 7,000 people. Correct me if you know the exact figure, please let me know. Who live in the square mile in the city of London, and there's at least 500 co-working spaces, shared workspaces, flexi-spacey type things in there. And I'm recording this from our studio in Ilford, in the co-working space I'm in there. And there's 2 co-working spaces, and 400,000 people live in the London Borough of Redbridge. So as we've booted the commute, a lot of the of all the workspace surveys I've just sat through in the last couple of years, the message coming out is that people want autonomy about where they work. It's not they don't like the office, and it seems like everyone only works in the office when we talk about work. They like the choice of what they're after is the choice of where they work and how they work, and all that type of thing. So we're going to see more spaces opening up and it's already happening now. I don't know why I said we're going to see. It's actually happening now, opening up outside city centres. And as the language of remote work has been activated in legacy companies, how and where that stuff happens has changed too, and this has an impact on how cities are going to be constructed and lived in, how communities operate in those cities. And in the middle of all that is a lot of technology. So with smart cities, there is the lovely, beautiful way of how citizens can engage with their smart city ecosystem and utilize their mobile phones and smartphones and all that type of stuff. Open data and the infrastructure that gets built there that helps cut costs and improve the environment and sustainability and all that good stuff. But there's also when I think of smart cities, as well, as enthusiastic as I am about that last stuff, I always think of things like Skynet and the Matrix and the police state and 1984 and Brave New World, and it's a very unhealthy thing. So, if as we say, with great power comes great responsibility, and there could be a lot of the key themes coming up is there is with a smart city operation, there is a lack of public awareness and social responsibility because we're reliant on technology. That infrastructure will be incredibly expensive to build and maintain, even though it will have cost savings in other places. If someone cuts the power cable, the whole city shuts down. And one of the things that concerns me most about the smart city conversation is the security issues, the public data, privacy concerns, and at the very end of it, there is this kind of like social. I don't even know why I said kind of like that. There's a definite social discrimination there, and you even see it in when Clubhouse launched, everyone on Apple, which is a more affluent handset than the Android. It was very Apple clubby, and there was a lot of criticism. And I was, even though I use an Apple device, I was with that too. It was an elitist type platform, social media platform, because it was only available on Apple. So there's those kind of things which we may not think of as we wander around Moorgate with our low fat mocha flat white, but that is something that impacts people there's a great website called The Rest of the World, which addresses the discrimination in technology. So what we're looking for from the TechLondon community is people who are in that Slack channel or connected to people in that Slack channel to come and be guests on the show. We're never going to run out of guests, but rather than go around calling up all our mates, we particularly want to engage and speak with and start to generate more conversations around these topics in the TechLondon Slack channel. So, and a little word on that is we are really looking, like absolutely definitely looking for people who are underrepresented and not visible in the London tech startup scene. So, I am a white male, and I do a lot of podcasting. I do a lot of talking about startups and stuff, and I'm surrounded by other white men. And podcasting in particular is a very white male dominated pastime. So we're on a mission to connect with folks in the TechLondon community who are female, non-binary, people of color, and also older people. And surprisingly, fun fact is that the average age of a startup founder is between 35 and 45. And we are deliberately looking to give voice and visibility to people in the 9,000 strong TechLondon startup community, so that representation is just a given. And it's it's definitely not a racist place, or it's a very welcoming environment in there. So if you're listening to this and you're not there, go to techlondon.io and plug in. But my most immediate example of this is, I spent a lot of time in the co-working workspace community, and there were 3 major co-working conferences that happened in 2020 and 2021, and 80% of the lineup of those conferences, 3 separate things, were white men talking about the future of work, which is not an accurate representation of the future of work. And we were then invited to do a whole session on diversity and inclusion in co-working in the workspace, which was at Co-working Europe, and we can put a link to that in the show notes. And they were some of those people who, if you're around the co-working scene in London, you will definitely know them. And they, articulated and gave voice to this kind of issue that we kind of drift over a lot in the business community as a whole. So if you're listening to this and want to get in touch, either go to techlondon.io, or if you go to LinkedIn, I'm Bernie J. Mitchell on LinkedIn. Just send me a direct message there, or find a way to get in contact with me. And we are definitely looking for guests. If you're doing anything that even has a little connection with 5G or smart cities going forward, we'd love to hear from you. And that is things like the future of work is, how buildings are made, how buildings are used, how people come together in community, how people play sport in there, how retail happens on and offline, safety features like security, goes on and on and on. Like, so anything you can think of that connects to that. We're very interested in people and how they're going to play out and how we're going to recover in the next few years from the impending recession and the acceleration of technology. And that touches a lot of things. One of the first guests we're going to have on in 2022, is my mate Hector. And if you're in Bathtub the Boardroom, Hector started his company there. He just started a new company in lockdown called Syncaroo, which is where workspaces can connect to Syncaroo, which then connects to all those desk booking apps and things like Google Maps. Sorry, not Google Maps, Google My Business, to update the listings on every site. And a big thing for Hector is like a lot of people who run co-working spaces have people booking on desk apps, and then they get sent the person and they don't own their data. And with Syncaroo, you are able to see all your data, what happens, where people come from, what they do, and you'll be able to use that data in your business to make business decisions going forward. And there's a whole load of stuff there about how we book spaces. Like, a lot of people don't schedule their like flexi desk bookings. They decide the night before or that morning that they're going to go and work somewhere. So, that's a very interesting way about how we make our work decisions. So I'll stop there because I can feel myself already doing Hector's podcast, and he's far more knowledgeable than me. And the last thing is we've developed a team around that work in other projects with us around TechLondon podcast. So we've got Sean Winfield, who is on an earlier episode here, who does Startup and Go, a long time face in the London scene. My friend Nat, who's actually a work colleague of mine, and she is a Paralympic gold medalist Paralympic swimmer, and works in our company with us now. And she just did the podcast before this one. She was with Kofi from Urban MBA talking about the relationship between sport and business, which is super, super interesting. Even though that was a half-hour podcast, they managed to get about 10% of what I hear them talking about offline into that podcast. Our friend Elle, who's worked with a lot of micro and small businesses in fashion brands and things like that, and is a really hardcore podcaster like myself, and is very interested in business and the conversations and connecting people. There is me, and then Sam Harris, who has a podcast app called Reason, was in Techstars, which is where the Reason podcast, if you go to, I think it's reason.io, which is basically, Sam is about 3/4 of his way through building YouTube for podcasters. So you can create you'll be able to create your podcast on Reason and then publish it and leave comments and build a whole community around it. I'm wildly enthusiastic about that. Sam's been coming to our Right Club and podcast meetup for a few years, and suddenly appeared with that one day. So please go and connect with us in the Slack channel. We'll be we just spent a bit of time like listening there and watching people and seeing what the conversations are around. And click and start conversations in there. If you're in the Slack channel, I forgot to say this earlier, please DM me in the Slack channel. It's Bernie J. Mitchell. If you want to take part, get involved in, or have a suggestion for a guest around the 5G and smart cities thing, I'm really up for having conversations in there. Feel free to contact me. And most of all, have a great holidays. However you spend it, I hope you have a great one. 2021 has been both a hard and interesting year. And we're looking to build more community around everything we do in London, particularly in TechLondon and the co-working and workspace community in London in 2022. So be careful out there. It is a jungle.
You've been listening to the TechLondon show. If you're interested in joining the community or even making an appearance on this show, make sure you join our Slack group over at techlondon.io. Till next time.